And there we go. Slight delay on getting the old broadcast started. It seemed that YouTube or Google was concerned that maybe they were about to allow something horrible to happen. But I assure you, we're okay. This is Fantasy NBA Today. I'm Dan Besbris, and of course, it is our Friday live edition. So for those of you listening to the recorded one, you've already missed it. But next week you can check us out. I think Aaron and I will be on either Tuesday or Thursday next week. I know we shuffled it around a little bit. I'm Dan Besbris. He is Aaron Bruski, and we are also joined today by Dawson Shine. Aaron, you got a good recline going on. It's a very Passover holiday look to you today. What's going on, man? You just finished recording Cause and Brew. I assume you were talking about the Bone Thugs and Harmony concert.
We did talk about that, but I like the way that you're basically saying I look like a homeless person, and that I probably should take care of my grooming, and that's probably use a shower.
It's the
just because I'm your boss, Dan, doesn't mean that you can't just tell it how it is. I may or may not have slept in the studio.
Did you actually?
No,
so may not. It's the expression is, how does this night differ from all other nights? And the answer to that question is, on this night we recline. I was merely commenting on the fact that you looked very relaxed today.
I'm on my way to the gym, okay? All right, so to go work out.
You're misinterpreting what I'm saying to you. You just look calm and cool and collected and just ready to go for a nice Friday program.
I don't smell that good, okay? I admit
it. Aaron is mad at himself today.
Because I strategically did not take a shower before coming into the studio. It happens. I'm going to the gym, damn it.
You're going to the gym and showering there?
I swim.
Oh.
If you couldn't tell by the physique, I swim.
Let's talk to Dawson for a sec. Dawson, what's going on, man? I see you've got a really nice microphone ready to go. Are you back at school now?
No, I'm still at my house.
Oh, you're still at home.
I don't go back to school till Sunday.
What? I was about to say, what the hell? How long are you off?
I was off for 5.5 weeks, and I'm bored. I'm out of stuff to do.
Bruski, I got to come back to you on this one because my old man meter is like in the red right now. The needle is just bouncing off the end of the tachometer. I'm so angry. Is this what I'm paying for? No, you go to a private school anyway. But Bruski, how angry are you right now?
I'm not angry. How can you be angry looking at Dawson? He's so young. I mean, I wish I was in school, man. That he's had 5.5 weeks off. He's clearly bored. He's joined up with hoopball. This is good times for Dawson. I wish I was Dawson.
My schedule next semester is going to make it so I don't have free time anyways. So,
well, Dawson, congratulations on your first inauguration today.
Yay!
You had to make it political, didn't you, Dan?
No, I was merely. I don't know what you're talking about. Everything I've said so far this morning has been 100% genuine. Let's talk about some basketball. This is Fantasy NBA Today. It is a basketball podcast for the website hoop-ball.com. You probably know that already. To those of you watching live, welcome. We'll be taking questions as the show motors along. That'll be, as usual, towards the end of the program. To those of you listening via the recording, as I mentioned right at the outset, you can give the Hoopball Media YouTube page a follow. That way, when we send out these links, you'll get an alert. We also tweet about it, so you can get it that way as well. And you can ask us questions live during this recording. It's also part of why this show is a bit of a cluster mess as compared to some of the other ones, but we're having some fun here on this Friday, so settling in a little bit. Thank you. We got a few more ratings on the podcast this week. Slowly but surely we climb. Bruski's goal of 100 is still a little bit out in the distance, but it's not too foggy. It's a clear day. You can just barely see that goal, that yellow tape. No, white tape? I've never run a marathon. What color is the tape at the end?
I can't say that I've done that. I'm going to go with it. It's a standard white tape.
Yeah, yellow is around a crime scene, huh? That's
probably. No, I'm a little upset with the listeners, to be honest. I want more than 30.
Well, It's
I want 100 ratings. If we get 100 ratings, we'll drop the price of the premium membership. And I'm not going to even say what we're going to drop it to. And so we actually have good momentum on the ratings. I don't feel like they deserve me to disclose the price break if they get to 100 until we're at least at 50.
It'll be.
50, I'll talk.
Will it be substantial?
It will be substantial.
All right. We'll take substantial. That's not bad. I'm also trying to get settled into. I've sort of built a new setup here with an actual microphone stand instead of holding a mic in one hand. So I'm hands free, but now I don't really know what to do with them. So I think what I'm going to do is instead have our Fun Shirt Friday reveal moment of the morning. This shirt is a little awkward in its size. It hangs a little loose over the shoulders, but I don't care. It's a shirt I often wear when I get my hair cut. That's also the one day every 8 to 10 weeks where I meet people from Petaluma. And so, without further ado, your Fun Shirt Friday is presented unto you. And on this fine Friday, January the 20th, 2017, I must remind everyone that golf, it's a whole lot of fun.
It'd be great if you could actually turn your camera on for your reveal.
I turned it on. Is it not working?
Looks on to me.
Well, I guess my there you are.
Oh, okay.
Leave it to me to screw things up. Golf, it's a whole lot of fun. Oh, hey, it's the Three Stooges.
Yeah, there you go.
Dawson, do you know who those three are?
Yes, I've seen the Three Stooges.
I'm not talking about the new remake movie.
No, the old black and white.
All right. We're just checking. Dawson has scored pretty high today. He said he watched Monty Python.
Yeah.
So Dawson's doing pretty well today.
Yeah, he's 2 for 2. He's batting 1,000. But here's the real test. Dawson, can you tell me the name of this stooge?
Oh, God, I don't even know what they're called. I know it's Mo Curley and something else.
I found the crack. I found the chink in his armor. Exposed, Dawson Shine.
It's Mo Curley and something else.
You're a charlatan. You're a charlatan, Dawson. All right, basketball. What happened yesterday? How about we talk about that? Then we'll look at what's going on in the future because we can divine it using our fantasy analysis spirits. Phoenix was in Cleveland last night, and Tyson Chandler is a man possessed. I know that does this officially put a lid on the free Alex Len movement?
I think so. I memean, I bought into Alex Len about a week and a half ago, and I've already moved on in a 14-team league. I just, sometimes if you're good, you will make minutes happen. And I don't think Earl Watson is playing to lose. I think he's playing to win. Tyson Chandler is just beating him. And it's not right. I don't think that the Suns have Tyson Chandler. And if I had Alex Len, I mean, unless there's an injury we don't know about, which is very possible with him, I would want to see Alex Len playing 20 minutes a game at a minimum. I mean, Tyson Chandler is not going to be a part of their future. So why not bring Alex Len along and teach him how to play the center position? But that's, Phoenix doesn't do things normally. So I don't think that there's fantasy value to be had with Len, at least until like March or April. And I think that there's enough of a ramp there for owners to take a wait and see approach.
The other question I have on this game is about Iman Shumpert. He's been coming on a little bit, although not doing a ton besides knocking down 3-pointers. But, Brew, is he doing enough in that one category to warrant a look?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you've got Kevin Love out. You've got, in that particular game, you've got Tristan Thompson, who didn't play his full minutes because of a finger injury that doesn't appear to be too serious. I think that they have been making a conscious effort to get Shumpert involved, but not sure that this is sustainable at all. I think that it's probably a fluke, and I probably wouldn't add even in a 16-team league because, I mean, even if we assume that the production was going to stick around, then you have to deal with the fact that he gets injured very easily and he could be out at any point in time.
And then, of course, Channing Frye had a nice ball game with Kevin Love out. Is that sort of a simple one-to-one correlation there?
Absolutely. And if Love doesn't play again, I think you look at Channing Frye, especially with Tristan Thompson's finger injury, there's just a nice little combination of reasons for them to lean on Fry. And in a DFS format, especially, or if you're streaming for 3-pointers, I think that would be a pretty wide play for one game.
Dallas, Miami. Is sort of looking through this ball game. I don't know that anything changed a ton for me. Other than James Johnson finally having kind of a quiet game. He'd been on a pretty vicious tear. But, in a rare twist, I'm actually contemplating not getting into too deep a discussion on either the Mavericks or the Heat. But, I don't know, Brew, talk me out of it.
Okay. I heard about it said, but when you said talk me out of it, I pretty much know that you want me to talk about things that happened in this game. And that the game itself was really boring and not a lot happened. So let's spice.
Find anything all that wildly fantasy relevant that at least we hadn't covered sort of ad nauseum already, right? I feel like we're just sort of walking.
I think I think the Seth Curry thing's interesting because he's had some sustained minutes, which should equal late round value. So I think that's a trend that's worth talking about. I think JJ Barea has had his first step back statistically on a per minute basis, though in the game itself he played well. I think if you added Barea in an 8-cat league, I don't think this is the game to drop him with, but the leash is getting pretty short. If they're going to play Curry 32 minutes, it means that Barea is probably stuck at 16. So that would be something to watch out for, but I'm personally not going to use that game as a reason to drop him. And then in the Miami side, Hassan Whiteside, there's serious there. I don't know if he's bummed out. He's not getting all-star love. He's not around. He tweaked his ankle. There's this interplay between he and Spo where Spo doesn't seem to care if he's hurt, and he's probably fed up with Whiteside. And Whiteside has morphed into kind of like Rick Vaughn from Major Leagues. He wants to be an offensive player. And he hasn't remembered his core competency, which is blocks. So that's a story going on there. Dragic, big game. You just hope he doesn't get shelved as the Heat tank. Tyler Johnson, great. James Johnson, not his best game, but he's a must-start guy going forward.
That's about all I had from this one, too. Washington is the simplest fantasy team in the history of mankind. So what about the New York Knickerbockers? We've got this sort of mishmash here where Joakim Noah is out. Kyle O'Quinn has now started 2 games in a row. He was brutally awful in one, and he was pretty good in another. And that's the same thing he was doing when he was coming off the bench. Carmelo Anthony had a good ball game. Knicks managed to cut a large deficit down to a pretty reasonable game, but they lost anyway. The name that jumps out, obviously, is O'Quinn because he keeps kind of popping on and off the radar. He's somebody else's John Henson, frankly, that's probably being picked up and dropped repeatedly. But where does he actually belong?
He's a weird carnival-like play. Like you don't know what you're going to get, even in the best of times. Everybody started him in the last game in DFS because Noah was out, and it felt like he had to get his minutes and he had to get his production. And then he did it. And true to form, he comes out and has this big night. And that, I think, is going to be the way you have to plan for this. Even if Noah would seem like an obvious situation, him getting hurt and sitting out as the year goes on, even really Hernan Gomez, who had it last night. You see Marshall Plumlee, who got 11. There's kind of keep Kyle O'Quinn's minutes down. And then if he's playing just 20 minutes per game, I think there's a lot of variance in there. If there's a lot of variance for any 20-minute player, but then he takes it to the next level because he can be so good on a per-minute basis for 1 second, and then this game could be completely crazy. So I think owners just have to really look at it in the aggregate and just plan for that. Like if you get a 4-game week for Kyle O'Quinn, you're going to have 1 game that looks like last night. You're going to have 1 game in the middle, and you're going to have 2 games that are crap. And that's going to average out to a late round value if he's getting 20 minutes per game. So you look at him as kind of a back of the roster guy. And then, you know what? If if everything breaks his way, he gets 25 minutes per game, and they build him into the game plan, and he becomes the Kyle O'Quinn that I thought he could be 3 years ago, then yeah, you got yourself a nice little pot of gold there. But other than that, he's just a top 150 guy. That's it.
Well, I'm just gonna put something right on the front porch for you here, Aaron, and you can run with it how you please.
Okay.
His name is Nikola Jokic. What say you?
I need you to talk a little bit longer about it. That's what I'm saying.
And he left.
I need you to speak 2 more bars about him. It's just hot in the studio. I had to turn the heat down and make this some real great television here. Nikola Jokic, you teeing it up for me? You want me to talk about?
I'm just putting the ball on the tee, and you got the bat cocked and ready to go, and just pick a direction and blast one.
All right, let's bunt. Nobody's expecting the bunt.
No, beat it out, man.
Yeah, in T-ball, did you ever play in T-ball with the player that could bunt? And
no, I don't know that was actually.
Here's the thing. Nikola Jokic, I've already said my piece a whole lot. I just think that it's really that we're celebrating rankings that are below ADP. So if your rank of Nikola Jokic was 35 and his ADP in most leagues was in the late second, early third, and your rank of him was 35, that means nobody that read your stuff got Nikola Jokic. And if you wrote that he should dropped, or if you wrote that it's not looking good for him, so maybe we should, just hang on and hopefully everything will go well. You should not be in thy chest that Nikola Jokic is now all of a sudden this massive fantasy asset, and that's what it looks like here, folks. I mean, he is the everything for the Denver Nuggets offense, and they look great playing through him, and it looks like teammates are happy. They've done a complete 180. It's talking about Michael Malone not having the locker room is completely overblown, and they look like a lot better team. So you're just going to enjoy owning Nikola Jokic. You're just going to hope he stays healthy, that he doesn't, get stupid injury like a hand injury or something like that. He can be a late first-round play. So hopefully he went out there and bought him. It's going to be fun. We're going to see this every night. I just think that to celebrate that like it was your own pick is like sophomoric at best.
Yeah, well, you say things enough times, they sort of become true nowadays. That's what we're seeing in there's this whole fake news phenomenon that I know is blowing up on the internet. I don't know that I completely understand the meme. Maybe Dawson can explain it. Dawson, I'm not even going to get into that. Have you been watching Denver Nuggets basketball, Dawson, by any chance?
I've been watching some of it because I really like Moutier, but been disappointing at best to watch him play. But the Nuggets themselves are so fun to watch when they give Jokic the ball at the top of the key, let him run through the offense himself. I swear they should just do that every possession at least once just to see what he can find for the offense.
His passing ability is amazing. And a lot of his passes yesterday, you could see kind of set up an additional pass for the open shot. Will Barton had 7 assists. Jameer Nelson had 9. Moutier only had 2 as he's become a little bit less of a facilitator, and they're using him a bit more as a scoring threat. But also of note in this basketball game, and unfortunately we got to get to the bad also, is that Pau Gasol broke a finger in the layup line, and they haven't officially released a timetable, but most of the stuff I was reading on the internet yesterday about this type of fracture usually means about 4 to 6 weeks. So that I know are going to be kind of attacking the fantasy world, and Bruski, this is why you make the big bucks over there. David Lee had a really big game yesterday, 10 points, 16 rebounds, 2 assists, a steal, and a block. Dwayne Dedman, 7 points, 4 boards, a couple of steals, no blocks for him in this one, which I thought was kind of interesting. But it feels like, and kind of looking back at games where the Spurs have rested one of their big guys, whether it's Aldridge or Gasol, there hasn't been a clear dominant winner in that, you've seen Lee kind of go for like 10 and 8 when he's been getting spot starts. and you see Dedmon go for like, 9 and 5, but he usually gets you a steal and a couple of blocks in there. So, Brew, are you picking anyone up? Does anybody really have the upside to warrant a roster spot, or is this just, pick up David Lee and hope for some nice rebounding nights?
We have a scale where it's helpful because you want to know kind of who you can drop for who, and that scale rates free agents. We call them a low-level free agent. We'll call them a mid-level free agent. We'll call them a high-level free agent. A high-level free agent is a guy that while you run, you don't walk to go get. And that's somebody like the backup point guard with a lot of talent when somebody else goes down ahead of them and they're going to be the starter and get 35 minutes, that kind of thing. Darren Collison, when Chris Paul went down 7 years ago, for whatever reason, it reminds me of that situation. You know why? Because I posted the news like 20 minutes after it happened, and I felt so bad. I felt like everybody missed out on Darren Collison because I was late posting the news. That stuck forever. He's a low level. He's going to have a probably in this span while Pau Gasol's out. I'd give him about a 75% chance of bringing back top 150 value. That's pretty good. Now his upside is not great. He is old. He could get hurt. He's going to probably settle. Described earlier, the key with him. So last night, he got a steal on a David Lee is a commitment to defense. Because he's not playing as many minutes, and he needs to be on the floor, or he needs to earn his place on the floor. It's not run the offense through David Lee like he was when he had all sorts of athleticism. It's just kind of get by with David Lee. So what he did in Dallas is he was able to give them steals and blocks and really build a case to be on the floor for those 25 minutes. And it had a better fantasy equation. Hopefully he stays in that realm. You could see him staying in that realm in San Antonio, where they seem to get every bit of oomph out of all the players. But against that backdrop, you have pop, and you have the way that they rotate players, and you have the history and nobody really stepping up. So I do think that David Lee carries a decent amount of risk into the basis. But yeah, you level it all out. I do think top 100 value is possible. I would probably feel better about top 125. Back of the roster guy, if you need a big, look.
Minnesota and the Clippers were the last one on the docket last night. Oh, you know what? Before we get to that, what about this Murray kid, Aaron? I don't even know how to pronounce his first name. Is it DeJounte?
It kind of cut in and out there. You mentioned DeJounte?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure if I'm pronouncing the name right. Let me we do have the audio cutting out just a little bit here and there. So let me see if we can get this thing sorted out. Is everybody's video set to ridiculous? Yeah, it is set to ridiculously low. I don't know. Bruski, how's your connection?
I'll shut down the camera, see if that helps.
We're going light today. It's technically still a video chat. I'll turn mine off as well. Let's see if that does the trick. Then I'll just edit this part out later. Yeah, so I was asking about Murray, who again I think it's DeJounte, sort of came out of nowhere with Tony Parker on the shelf. Patty Mills only played 16 minutes. Is this just another, like when everybody went crazy for Jonathan Simmons after one good game earlier this year? Oh, now I think we lost everybody.
I heard that last part there. Let me know when you hear me good.
Oh, I hear you again. Yeah, so I'm gonna try to figure out how best to edit this disaster for the recorded one. For those watching live, you're getting to see all the technical difficulties happen in real time. Aaron, what I was asking was, and hopefully you can hear me, this explosion for Murray, it has the feel of that Jonathan Simmons game earlier this season when everybody went crazy and then he disappeared for a month and a half. Is this are you buying what you're seeing in this spot start, or is this just sort of another pop situation where a guy has a good night, he sort of rides him a little bit more, and then in the next one you might see Patty Mills play 30 minutes.
Yeah, so what I see is obviously Tony pretty soon, and that will push Murray to the periphery. We won't be talking about him when that happens, but what we've seen with Murray, that he is definitely capable of putting up numbers when given the opportunity. And a lot of people, a lot of smart fantasy minds out there, guys like Josh Lloyd, feel like he will be the next point guard for the San Antonio Spurs. I find that fascinating because I have not watched a lot of him. His college film in the draft I watched, and he had kind of non-point guard-like attributes, bad shot selection, and, not necessarily the tightest handle in the world. So to hear that he would be the point guard of the future, it tells me that they're going to develop him into something like that. And he does appear to have the talent to make that kind of a thing, a possibility. So it's an intriguing dynasty stash. It's an intriguing watch and see if anything happens to Tony Parker situation. But as far as like in a normal, even like a 16-team league, I'm not buying. I might not buy in a 20-team league. But we just now know that you can fill it up if he's given the minute.
Another injury of note occurred in the last ball game, although it doesn't sound like it's quite as serious as the Gasol one. But Ricky Rubio left partway through the Minnesota-Los Angeles Clippers game with hip tightness. We've seen the Wolves without Rubio already once this year, Bruski, and nobody really had fantasy value in his stead. Do you see that changing at all this time around? Are any of the young guys more ready this time?
Maybe a little bit more, but I just think that you're looking at another Emmanuel Mudiay if you're looking at Chris Dunn. The shooting, whether it limits his scoring or it just anchors his field goal percentage down, it's not going to be anything more than a late round value. So I don't like, the plunge and dropping a player with value if that kind of top 150 in an 8-cat league value, if that doesn't help you, I don't see the big to go get Chris Dunn. And in a 9-cat league, he's obviously going to be worse because he's a young rookie that's going to make a lot of mistakes with the ball. I do, though, think that something interesting happened last night just by virtue of Ricky Rubio not being on the floor, not having really anything to do with Rubio per se, but Karl Anthony Towns was able to get a lot more shots off. And I think what ends up happening in these kind of marquee games against marquee opponents is you get a little bit more pressure to do your best possible thing with the ball. And then that's obviously to go to Karl Anthony Towns. And so he was super efficient. He only took 2 threes, and that's a key to his game. We've been really talking about this a lot in our various podcasts. If he's going to be shooting 3-point shots at 4 per game, not just because of that small little increase of 2 extra shots, but because of the mentality associated with it, his field goal percentage has been so bad that he's been a bad second-round play. If he shifts that and he goes back to what he was doing last year and he plays to the hoop, by 3 to 4% from the field, and that's how he gets his top 5 value. So whether it's Ricky Rubio not being there, whether it's the Wolves trading one of Andrew Wiggins or Zach LaVine, those are the indicators that owners need to be looking at for buy low, sell high deals, or these high value deals where you're looking at Karl Anthony Towns. He's got a ton of name value, but his owner knows dang well that he's been a top 24 producer this year, and that's not paying the bills. So they might be ready to make a move. So if you see either of LaVine or Wiggins, which I don't hear anything about, so I don't think that's like cooking or anything. I know Ricky Rubio, his people, and the Wolves would love to move on, and that more likely, but not the way that you it might indirectly help Karl Anthony Towns. And I think Rubio, you think, he's going to set other players up. He's got a high assist total, and that's going to be helpful But I think just by virtue of getting Karl Anthony Towns the ball and getting out of the way and operate closer to the hoop.
And then we got our first look at the Chris Paul-less Los Angeles Clippers last night as well. DeAndre Jordan played a large role in their offense. He had 29 and 16 in that one. But, of course, a featured offensive DeAndre Jordan is probably not why people drafted him, because that free throw number is going to go up, and he's going to become an even bigger drag on that side. Still, he shot 80% on 15 tries from the floor, so you kind of get what you bargained for with that one. But at the guard position, as the Hoopball had predicted and as we had mentioned on this podcast, Raymond Felton in sort of trial run number 1 looked like the better all-around guard to have, at least for the time being. He had 10 points, which was overshadowed by Austin Rivers' 20, but Felton had 4 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals, where Austin Rivers had a rebound and 2 assists, and he did manage to toss a block in there. So, at first glance, both guys were okay, but it seems like also at first glance, Raymond Felton is the guy who can do more things, and if you're in, more traditional fantasy leagues, that's usually what you're looking for. So, Bruski, is that, I know that Hoopball's tweet a couple days ago when the Paul news broke was that Raymond Felton is the guy, and it seems like round 1 sort of goes to Ray.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple of things to like about Raymond Felton versus Austin Rivers in this situation, and one's that Raymond Felton's going to handle the ball more. The offense, his value is going to be elastic than it will be for Austin Rivers. Austin Rivers might have more explosive performances because he's going to be more apt to shoot more threes. He's going to be more apt to try to score more, whereas Felton will probably take more of a facilitating role. But the fantasy stat sets are going to drastically be in Raymond Felton's favor. He's going to get a pretty stable, double-digit scoring night every night. He's going to have probably like 3 or 4 rebounds. And then he's going to have the assist total where it's going to be up in the 6, 7, 8 range. And then from there, everything else is gravy. He will hit a couple threes. He will get you some steals, maybe even a block. And then there's the potential for a big game as well, which he's shown in the past with Dallas and even with the Clippers. So with Felton, it was a run, don't walk moment when Chris Paul went down. I was really proud that we were able to get that injury news out quickly. We knew it was a hand. Other sites thought it was a knee. With a knee for Chris Paul, that could be a tweaked knee, 1 to 2 weeks. With a hand, with the way he was holding it, we had video on it. We were able to show that to you guys. When you see him kick a chair and look frustrated and he's holding that hand, that says to me 4 to 6 weeks. That says drop your worst player no matter what and go get Ray Felton. So hopefully a lot of you guys were able to go out there and do that. And as far as Austin Rivers goes, I do think he'll be a late round value. I do think Maurice Spites will be a late round value with or without Blake Griffin. There's just too much vacuum of production that's required for this team. Those guys will eclipse top 150 value for the time period that Chris Paul is out. And then, Jamal Crawford, his line last night looked empty all the way until like the 4th quarter. And then he was able to put up a flurry. It wasn't a top 150 line. It was something less than that. But I would also be looking at him as far as like 14-team leagues go. I think he'll be able to toe the line in those leagues as well.
Before we get to the questions and a look ahead to Friday, I like to always take a little bit of time on our live show since we've got the founder, the creator, and of course now with the cameras off, everyone can just picture the guy in the Matrix that uses a whole bunch of weird Latin phrases. Aaron, what's going on at Hoopball? We got a new podcast out.
Yeah, you guys talked me into doing a podcast. So the Bruski Breakdown was a the behemoth piece that I always write on Wednesday night. I would stay up until Thursday morning, and I would crank out what was essentially a reset of the entire league, fantasy values and the like. And I still want to be able to do that. It's just harder in a kind of a CEO sort of a realm to be able to dedicate that block of time with everything else that we've got going on. But to be able to verbally do it Monday through Thursday is really nice. I've been able to, after the game's end, just turn on the podcast, record, and really dump out all the thoughts. So they're going to get posted sometime in the evening and or the morning. So you guys that travel, that listen to podcasts, you'll essentially get, valuations and my thoughts on the night's activities. So that's great. We have a DFS podcast coming out soon. That's going to be of tremendous assistance to DFS owners. And that's really what we've been focusing on for the last couple of weeks, is getting our DFS project up and off the ground. You're noticing a lot more articles on the website. A great new one's popped up by Ben McMillan called Eating the Chalk. I love that one. I love it because it's so trendy to go for the cheap DFS play that's got the upside. And it's kind of like Paul Pierce in standard year-long leagues. There was like a 3-year period, or Tim Duncan. There's like a 5-year period where nobody wanted to touch Tim Duncan because of how old he was. And nobody wanted to eat the chalk. And they were able to just pillage getting this top 30 value from these guys because nobody wanted the old toy that nobody wanted to play with anymore. They wanted the new shiny toy that never really, or I shouldn't say never works out, but oftentimes might be overvalued. So that's a good article that's coming out. We basically have daily DFS articles. We've partnered with Roto Tracker. So if you play DFS and you want to get a great tool, you can try their free stuff, but you can also get a paid tool that really just decomplicates the tracking element of being a DFS owner. Are you winning? What games are you winning? Which ones are you not winning? All of these key questions that help you compete with guys that are being very serious about this stuff. It's not complicated. You just get in there and just sign up, and you see a tool that's really, it's easy to use. It links up to your DFS sites, and it just downloads the information from your games, and then it displays it for you in a way that you can make better decisions with. So that's awesome. And beyond that, our data team, we just had a meeting last night. Our data team is developing all these tools for you guys to use that will help with fantasy evaluations and trade compare tools and all this stuff that basically have been available on a very limited amount of other sites. We want to bring it to Hoopball so you can have a one-stop shop. And then even just little things like improving our team reporting. One thing I'd like to do for Hoopball is start into the journalism side of things. For those of you who don't know, I spent about 5 years doing journalism for the Sacramento Kings relocation story and developing sources and figuring out kind of the world of NBA journalism. And it's a world that's getting kind of negatively impacted by cord cutting at the TV level and shrinking budgets. And I don't think it has to be that way. And we're starting to work on models where people can use the Hoopball platform to be reporters and to report on teams and to build their careers that way. And that's something I'm very excited about. And we've just started taking little baby steps in that area. And that's going to be interesting for those people out there that want to be in journalism, that want to write, that want to follow a beat, that want to develop, kind of a name in this industry. That stuff I'm very excited about. And I think that's it for right now. I mean, other than that, we do have quite a bit of other stuff going on, but that's probably all the listeners want to hear about for today.
Is that all? That's it? Just like 25?
It's actually a really tiny amount of what's going on. And we've grown to over 40 contributors now.
Holy.
Which is just insane. So it's exciting times. I pinch myself every day because it's really growing fast.
And I will tell all the listeners this. Aaron mentioned the Hoopball partnership with Roto Tracker. Hoopball listeners of podcasts are getting a 10% discount. Go to hoop-ball.com/Roto Tracker, and you can learn more about that. I believe there's a message directly from you at that site.
There is. And,
look at that. That's that little cartoon of yours.
And I'll say this. Brett Squires has been using it for a while. He's winning. Adam Levitan, who you guys know from my Roto World days, he's a big Roto Tracker guy. It's a good service. Like, the innovators out there, we want to partner with innovators. The model has changed for fantasy basketball. It's not the big box sites. It's not the, the TV stations or the TV conglomerates, if you will, that are driving innovation. It's the private shops, and we want to support private shops in what they do, because they're the ones that are really moving the needle, and they're the ones that are going to protect the industry going forward. So, we're really proud to be a partner of RotoTracker, and I think that they give really good value.
All right, you guys know what time it is. It's time for some lightning round questions from the crowd. Bruski, you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Ben Carnado gets the first question, and actually, EE Instructor had the first post in the chat room. It just says, okay. I feel like I missed the first half of this somewhere, but I don't see it anyplace. So, okay, man. Ben says, what's up, Hoopball? Just traded Porzingis for Jokic. Was that a decent trade?
That's absolutely a decent trade. I am fired up about that trade. I mean, Porzingis, yes, he's a unicorn. Yes, he's awesome. Yes, he's fun to watch. Yes, his future is as bright as anybody in the leagues. I'm not convinced that Porzingis is better than Jokic. I think Jokic is better than Porzingis. Let's just be clear, just in a pure basketball sense. And so that's fun. And from a fantasy perspective, you've got a player with less injury risk and higher upside statistically. So enjoy your Jokic trade.
Optical 818 says, what's up, guys? Dan, are you a professional diaper changer by now? Well, I was from changing my own already, but yes, actually, the other day I finally started to pioneer this, and I'm sure this is something that people have been doing for hundreds of years, but I've now gotten in the habit of sliding a clean diaper underneath the dirty diaper during the changing process, and then like pulling out the tablecloth, just whipping the dirty diaper out from in between so that the child actually never touches the changing table. And then those of you who have or have had baby boys know this. When the diaper is off, there is the danger you may get wet. So it's good to try to make that transfer as quick and as peaceful as possible. So, yeah, I think I'm getting pretty good at this bad boy. Ben, back with another question, says, Dion Waiters or Josh Richardson for rest of season? This is a good question, Aaron, because we've got Richardson who just can't get healthy, and Waiters who has stat set issues, but at least he's playing, and he's playing a decent chunk of minutes right now. I think I'd rather go Richardson still, but, the injury stuff does bring it a little bit closer.
Yeah, if we're talking about somebody else like Dion Waiters, other than Dion Waiters, it might be a closer question. But Dion, unfortunately, just that stat set is so bad that it almost hurts you more than it helps you. And so the long and the short of it is independent of my thoughts on Richardson, I'd probably tell you to go with the other player other than Dion Waiters, no matter what. And so with Richardson, a lot of Richardson questions. I'm basically not dropping him. I feel like at a minimum, we see him wait until the All-Star break, and then there's a third of the season for a lot of you guys in the fantasy playoffs. But even independent of that, if he waited all the way until the All-Star break, I think he's got a good to great chance at probably top 75 value, and that alone would be worth the wait, so to speak, because between now and then, we're looking at about a month's worth of action until the All-Star break, a little bit less. And then after the All-Star break, you're going to get about a month and a half to 2 months worth of action. So it's about a 2-to-1 ratio there. And I think that the ROI would look like something like top 125 value if he does that. And those are, I'm trending towards not worst case scenarios, but I think I'm padding the time frames and the production. I'm padding it enough to where that's more realistic. So I feel like holding him, unless you need the wins now in a head-to-head league, unless you're in a shallow league, a really shallow league, I feel like holding is the right play. I understand the desire to move on, but I'm just not there yet.
All right, well, speaking of waiting, we got word yesterday that Chris Middleton is actually targeting getting on the court around the All-Star break. That's a lot sooner than I think people expected, but I have to believe there's going to be some playing time issues as he works his way back. What realistically, Aaron, can you expect from Middleton? Maybe like the last 3 weeks of the year he's actually playing some good ball and decent minutes, more, less? Am I close?
Well, I don't know. This is going to change my entire draft strategy. I think we should probably redraft all of our fantasy leagues based on this development. No, I think that I think he's a great stash. Like really, like he's gonna have top 50 potential. We just don't know about how his rehab is going, and so if things are great and he comes back and he hits the ground running, and it only takes a couple weeks to develop, into the player that he normally is. I just think that there's tremendous value there. I don't think there's a lot of, yes, Giannis is going crazy. Yes, Jabari Parker is going his version of crazy. But there's not a lot beyond that I would be worried about. He does stuff that others on that team don't really do. So I just think that he could step right back in, at a minimum, give you a late round value after about a 2-week grace period, if you will, while he gets up to speed. But they're not going to put him on the floor unless that thing's been battle tested inside of the practice walls and he's, like pretty impervious to injury. Because face it, they're going to be in the playoff hunt. They need him for the playoffs. This is a really big deal for this Bucks squad. They're sitting on gold with everything that they've done there. Congratulations to them. They kind of almost lucked their way into that. But that's a fun little situation there. I think he should be held in the vast majority of fantasy leagues.
Question about Gary Harris now has popped up as well. He's been another guy that's been injured a lot. This particular owner has been offered or is constructing a trade where he could send out Michael Kidd-Gilchrist and get Gary Harris back. Basically, the question right now is, do we think he's ever going to get healthy this year?
Absolutely. Like, go make that trade. Like, don't listen to what I'm about to say. Just go hit accept. Get Gary Harris for Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. No questions asked. Kidd-Gilchrist is probably a bigger injury risk this second than Gary Harris is, currently. Gary Harris rolled his ankle. It happens in an NBA game. Like, it's not something that, you go, oh, here we go again. Literally the guy's foot slid under his ankle. Nothing you can blame him for. If anything, it's giving his groin more time to rest. And so I just think that it was a bad luck injury, and we're going to see him back sometime within the next week. And then from there, he's the same asset that he was prior to this injury, which was at a minimum a top 110, top 100 guy on a per game basis. I think he has the same type of potential as a Otto Porter to take a leap in this season. And the other thing is you're starting to see what the writing on the wall for the Nuggets is, that they need to trade people. You're starting to see reports like Mark Stein's report that Nurkic is sure to be traded before the deadline. Well, of course they're going to make some moves. They have to make some moves. And every time they do that, it just filters more statistics into his already healthy stat set. When he's been healthy this year, he's been putting up numbers. You guys do not panic on Gary Harris. I understand. I get it. But you're going to kick yourself when he gets healthy.
Ben says, I'm thinking about trading Hassan Whiteside for DeAndre Jordan. Am I crazy? This feels like a very easy yes or no question. Yes. Right?
Question mark? I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, I'm worried about – I have a lot of Hassan Whiteside. It sucked to be in the top – to have a draft pick in the 8 to 12 range was just brutal this year. And so I have a lot of Hassan Whiteside, and he's not going to be good. The profit's not going to be there. I think that we need to see if he can be a defensive guy, and that's really crazy to say. He's so slow out there right now, and I don't want to rule out the potential of an injury. It just looks like he's disinterested, and so his value right now is firmly bottom of the third round. So DeAndre Jordan, I mean, we all know his limitations. He's going to have a nice little bump here with Chris Paul out. Obviously, you probably got to be looking at a punt free throw build in most cases, even though DeAndre Jordan, he doesn't exactly kill you in regular roto leagues. He's a top 50 guy on the year. But take a look at your stat sets. It's not like Whiteside is killing or he's doing anything great for your free throws. He's just shooting a little bit less of them, and he has potential to hit more free throws where DeAndre Jordan has none. His shot is officially broken, but Hassan Whiteside's at 58%. I'm hoping for a Hassan Whiteside regression in the free throw area where he showed promise. He looks to me like a streaky free throw shooter. So he might be able to, in the second half of the season, really turn it on. And in that case, he becomes a first-round asset. So to kind of pull this all together, long story short, I do think that Hassan Whiteside is a better fantasy asset. There's one scenario that worries me, and that's that the Heat totally pack it in. And what you might do if you want to keep Whiteside and not worry about this issue is just go handcuff Willie Reed, who's been great on a permanent basis this season. And my thought is if Hassan Whiteside gets injured, Willie Reed will be like a top 40 fantasy play, and it'll be like, whoa, what happened? But I really think that Willie Reed has that kind of potential just because of the situation in Miami. And that would alleviate your concern. Well, what if they sit Whiteside? What if he is hurt? What if he is, a malcontent? Whatever all these things are. And that would be your insurance. So I'd probably say keep Whiteside, go get Willie Reed somehow, and then just put this to bed and don't worry about picking up DeAndre Jordan in that trade.
In a head-to-head league, is it worth stashing Chris Paul? I'm thinking, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes, no questions asked.
Easy one. Let's see here. Angel Delgado mentioning some trades and thanking us for the advice given. So you're very welcome, Angel. Andrew Wiggins is another name that has popped up here in the chat room. Is Wiggins worth a keep or possible trade asset? I'm not sure that I completely understand the exact question there. I mean, I feel like people kind of know how we feel about Andrew Wiggins at this point, Aaron, and that is we're not particularly high on him. So I don't feel like anything's changed lately.
I need to be full disclosure about this, as I thought Wiggins would push through these issues this year. And I just feel it's important to be honest about fantasy picks in general. I don't want to be the Chad Ford of fantasy. With Wiggins, he's a top 180 guy right now on the year in 9 cat leagues because of the things that everybody was concerned about, because he doesn't produce across the board. His 44.6% field goal percentage on 18 attempts per game, while it's not killing you, it's kind of like empty calories in that he's not giving you the other stuff. So you're really, to have 44.6% be so heavily weighted, you kind of wish that you had a heavier weight on maybe a big man that's not getting you steals or getting you threes. And I guess you could look at that a few different ways. The other thing that's killing you is 73% from the foul line on 6 attempts.
Yeah.
That's just brutal. And I don't know if it's ever going to change with him. He needs a full makeover offensively to get the bad stuff out of his system. And I think he could probably get that with a higher end coach on the offensive side. But I mean, I think you don't drop him. I think you trade him because there's going to be a market for him no matter what. And yeah, I mean, they need to make a trade in Minnesota. Now, does it work in his favor? Can they trade Levine and then he gets a little bit, clearer road to value? I just think he would be the guy that would be traded. And then the question is where and what's it going to do to his value? So yeah, I'm not high on him. Don't know what to tell you. I think you could sell the name.
Yeah, that may be your best bet. Ben asks, is there anybody that you think he could target where maybe they're a lesser name, but obviously producing better than top 180? Does anyone pop into your head? That's a tough question in my opinion.
I got one. Aaron Gordon. Gordon having similar problems. He's a top 175 guy on the year, and shooting percentage, the same stuff that we bagged on Gordon for last year. he hasn't been able to turn the corner, and he needs to play those power forward minutes, not because he's like the greatest power forward ever, but just he needs to be closer to the hoop so he gets more steals, blocks, rebounds, things like that. And he needs to stop taking outside shots. You know, he needs to hang around the rim. And I know they want to develop him, and I know he fancies himself I don't know, like a combo guard or something. But he's, you know, they with one trade can end up having him slotted in at power forward, and then he shoots up the rankings. So I think you would get a better fantasy situation on a relatively even value deal. And the owner, I think, would probably be open to that.
Chong says, Dan, I asked you on Twitter, but I'll ask again on the video podcast, and that's fine. We'll address it. Chong is a Pau Gasol owner in a Roto league with an 82 game cap per position. And my advice on Twitter was, don't drop him. If you have a games cap that's literally 1 game per slot, then it doesn't hurt you to hold on to a guy who's posting, you know, 6th, 7th round value or whatever Pau is at this point in the season. Aaron, agree or disagree? Hold on tight, because if there's really no penalty for holding on to a guy, then there's no reason to drop him.
Yeah, that's one of those kind of classic math problems where you get a spreadsheet from Dan Besbris at midnight that has all of these things broken out into nice, neat columns, and you see how much of a degenerate Dan Besbris really is. And let me assure you, folks, this man is a degenerate.
You loved that Excel spreadsheet. I know you loved it.
Of course I did. It takes one to know one. I mean, when I saw that, I was like, okay, I know the advice Dan is doling out on behalf of Hoopball is good.
Because he's a lunatic.
He's exactly. And yeah, if there's no penalty for this, then really you kind of look at it the opposite way and go against the current. I mean, everybody wants you to drop him, but no, you hang on.
Yeah, you got to hang on. I mean, there's just, you know, you're not going to find a Pau Gasol on the waiver wire over the next 4 to 6 weeks, and you're probably not going to find a Pau Gasol on the waiver wire at that point anyway. So, you know, find somebody else, slot him in. The issue, of course, becomes he's occupying a roster spot where you'd like to be able to sort of rotate bodies in and out and hope that you can kind of catch lightning in a bottle. But I don't think that there's a Pau lightning out there that you're going to catch, at least not until maybe the trade deadline. To me, that's the key moment that's not that far away, but still a few weeks out, where you're going to see probably some values change dramatically. And that's where I think it'd really be nice to have a roster spot that you can play with a little bit. But that's a discussion for another day. And
you just got to look at the odds. Go, how many top 75 waiver wire guys have there been? You know, and really like break that out and like, okay, so what is that average per week? Like, are we getting a top 75 waiver wire guy every week, every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks? That's the stuff that I think you got to think about when trying to play the let's free up a roster spot game.
Yeah, and you know, and just a quick look on Yahoo, I guess, and you're sort of perusing, hey, is there anybody in the top 75 that was ranked outside the top 150? And the only three, I'm finding 3 right now, are Trevor Booker, who, by the way, has been trending down lately, and he may end up outside the top 75 before the season's done. Mo Harkless, who had a nice long run while Al-Farouq Aminu was out, but he's also trending down a little bit, aside from some nice defensive stats. And Tyler Johnson, who's not going anywhere. He's locked in as a guy who was pre-ranked something like 160, and he'll easily be a top 75 guy. So
pre-ranked by other sites at 160.
Yeah. I'm just going off the Yahoo numbers right now.
Other sites.
But I mean, that's the note right there. Like you're looking at maybe Lou Williams was 167 and he's number 69. So, you know, I'll throw him in as kind of like an honorable mention there. But you're looking at maybe 4 all season so far. So that's, I mean, and do these guys hang on? Is Trevor Booker top 75 by the time the year's over? I'm thinking probably not. So, you know, 2 or 3 by the end of the year is a pretty good numbers game to say, well, maybe I shouldn't drop my top 75 guy because I'm probably not going to find one. You know, but there are, of course, those stretches where you can get a top 75 guy for a week or two You just have to be really diligent, and you're going to misfire sometimes. And that, to me, is a good reason why you hold on to the guy that you know is going to get you there. Yusuf Nurkic is another guy that's been coming up a lot, and this I think is a really good question, and I want to spend more than our typical 20 seconds on it before we sort of wind towards the end of the show. The rumor mill churned out the note yesterday that he is very likely to be moved. He feels like kind of an interesting stash because we saw what he was able to do when he was playing 25 minutes earlier this year, and that was basically hammer dunk on everybody.
Yeah, he's a mercurial player, and I don't think people like reconcile that very easily. They've heard the story about his dad. He's like a 400-pound police officer out in Eastern Europe, and beating up people. And you look at it, you see this big bruiser, and you don't think, oh, this guy's going to get pouty and not play well. But that's actually been the case with him throughout the last year and all the way dating back to last season. So the all he needs is the situation to turn up for him, and where he's the guy, he's getting the support. He's got 25 minutes per night, and they run offense. All that stuff you turn into Super Nurkic, and he gets steals and blocks and boards and points and and assists, and he becomes this dynamic weapon. And I think he's a must-own player right now because of that. 3 weeks from now, we'll probably see him in another uniform. And you could even get a little bit of a bonus production out of Denver trying to say, okay, hey, we don't want to play Jokic 36 minutes a night every night. Let's play him 30. Let's give Nurk the 18 so he can show other teams what they have. Now, it might work the opposite direction. They might just say, hey, let's not play the guy so we don't show him playing poorly.
Yeah, Rudy Gay,
he's been pretty bad lately. But yeah, I think he's a must-own. Upside, you just ran through the reasons. The top 75 list of guys is very small, and he can be that. So I think it's well worth a stash, and I would call him a must-own player in 12-team leagues as a result.
Yeah, things turned a bit for Nurkic after the Denver's 110-107 win over the Chicago Bulls back on November the 22nd. So he had about a month to start the year, and he was terrific. He had a 5-block game in there. He had an 18-rebound game in there. And he shoots a good percentage, too. He's around the bucket. So I agree. You try to find a roster spot for him. He's a really interesting guy to have on your club. Austin Szymanski says he's sitting in 4th in a 12-man head-to-head league. No IR slot. He has Rodney Hood. Do I sit on him and hope he comes back for the playoffs, or do I rotate him out? Bruski, the last that I had heard that Hood was out for about 2 weeks, and then is it a reevaluation, or was it the expectation that he'll be back in 2 weeks?
I want to say it's an expectation that he'll be back. I think that they dodged the bullet, but here's the thing with Rodney Hood. His stat set barely supports late-round value when he's playing 30 minutes per game. And in the future, if there's less depth and he becomes more of the guy, more of a number 1, number 2 scorer, then he can improve on that and maybe jump up to, say, like top 50. But for now, his expectation is nothing more than top 125 value. And so talking about stashing a guy like that, that's not going to pay the bills. And so you can move on with confidence that you're not giving away the next best thing, the next greatest thing since sliced bread. Just make the move, stream it for anybody. David Lee, you want to add him for David Lee? Go add him for David Lee. I mean, really, any low-level free agent, you have my blessing.
Is Rondé Hollis-Jefferson ever going to get decent minutes? And frankly, Aaron, I'm going to use this as a segue into the second half of this question, and then we really got to get to wrap-up time. Is anybody on the Nets ever going to get decent minutes?
It's a great question. I know that they're talking about playing Karis LeVert more. And, with Karis LeVert, he's got, some positives. He's got, a bunch of negatives as well. His ability to get steals and blocks for a guy his height should be in question. I mean, his stat set from college showed that like 0.9 steals and 0.2 blocks per game. Obviously, things can change. And then you've got efficiency issues, and you can quote me effective field goal percentage all day. It doesn't matter. It's field goal percentage that gets calculated in fantasy leagues. So he's going to have to improve in that area, and he's going to have to get a lot of popcorn stats at 24 minutes per game. I think when you look at all of that, there's not a great shot at top 150 value. I mean, it exists. I think it's probably at 24 minutes. He's probably at about 40% chance of returning you top 150 value. And that's going to be the case for a lot of these guys, because it's really easy when you have a young team to play all of them 25 minutes. And so Rondé Hollis-Jefferson's going to be in that same boat. And for him, I did like, I mean, I don't know if this is good for them or the fantasy assets, but he got the ball the other night and literally took it to the hole every time he got the ball. And that's great for him statistically. It's not great for the Nets in terms of basketball play. They'll probably pull him back a little bit if he keeps doing that. But yeah, he needed the 30 minutes to offset the risk. And he's not going to get the 30 minutes, at least for now, not for the foreseeable future. And the big thing here to blow this whole thing up is if Jeremy Lin comes back and takes his 30 minutes, then it's like, man, all you guys just got a huge step back. So I'm very bearish on the Nets assets. I think there's a scenario in March and April where they'll all pan out. But the question is going to be for LeVert, for Hollis-Jefferson, for all these guys, is if you stash them now, will the payoff down the road justify the stash? And that's where I feel like just because you like a guy, you know, just because you think that by the end of the year that they might be something, you know, it's like reaching for the low hanging fruit and then taking a bunch of credit for it. You're going to sit there and say, oh, in April, Karis LeVert, you know, is putting up top 75 numbers. Look at us, how smart we are. Well, no, you know, you basically wasted everybody's money for a couple months. And now you're out there taking credit for it. I think you really got to look at the ROI involved with this stuff. And who knows, maybe Karis LeVert can pan out. I think those odds that I stated, 30 to 40% of, if he's getting a 24, 25 minutes per game, you know, for his chances of returning top 150 value. So then you got to evaluate from there whether or not it's worth it.
All right, couple of quick ones here, and then we're putting a bow on this bad boy. Excuse me. Can the Bulls sign Chris Bosh if he gets waived by Miami? I'm gonna actually answer that one myself. Don't worry about that right now. Don't worry about that. We are a long way from that being a question that you have to worry about. A long, long, long way. Jared Sullinger, Bruski, stashing or no?
No, I'm not going to do it. He's got a top 125 value at best in the bestest of best case scenarios.
That's lovely. Marquise Chris, stash or no?
I can get behind this one at least because he's shown some stat set viability, and there is this thing you should play your young guys if you're a terrible basketball team, and I think that's going to have to happen at some point. Now, is it a mustache situation? No, it's not a mustache situation.
Should I buy low on Al Horford?
I like the thinking there. I don't know that there's this big element of change other than that he might get more comfortable with his teammates. I think, I think, let me quickly I don't want to give bad advice. Let me just quickly take a look. I mean, it all obviously depends on what you're selling and what you're getting. I don't know. I don't know that a savvy owner is going to give you more than what he's worth right now. Yeah. That's my issue with that. So if you're talking about selling, or you're going to sell somebody like Marc Gasol or, I don't know.
Yeah, that's it.
Hayward, Kristaps Porzingis. If you're going to sell those guys, yeah, absolutely go get Al Horford.
Tiberius, by the way, on the Bosh thing, yes, the report, we saw it as well about the Bulls being interested in him. I can tell you everybody would be interested in Bosh if he was available to play, and Dwayne Wade obviously has a little bit of an inside angle on him, but I don't believe he's playing this year. I don't believe that there's any chance of that. So and I'm not trying to brush off the question. I just, this is a guy that's actually dealing with a life and death situation. If one of those clots that he experiences gets fired into his brain, the man can die. So, it's not like flying on a plane and a sprained ankle gets worse. This is very serious. And when the diagnosis came out late last year and everybody was talking about him maybe coming back for the playoffs, my wife actually walked in and said, no, we put people on those medicines for 3 to 6 months. So, this is a really serious thing. And I wouldn't worry about it yet. Don't stack.
You get this insight from Dan Besbris because the wifey.
I know, doctor. But it's not, she doesn't have any insight when somebody turns an ankle, but if somebody bonks their head or has blood clots, well, then now I've got something to bring to the table.
And I'll even say this, I didn't know that you had such an angle here on this. And if I had really, really thought it through, I would have not even messed with Chris Bosh in the preseason. But I did, and I paid for it significantly.
Well, there was the question that he might try to play this year. I thought, they'll put him on a bus or something for trips because the constant travel is certainly a dangerous way for him to try to get around. He'd have to get up and move all the time. You can't let those things develop. And it sounds like Tiberius knows that as well. Yeah, I mean, you can play with proper care, but if a clot starts to develop and it gets hit, I don't know. The guy's got millions of dollars. I don't know if it's really worth rolling the dice at this point anymore. He's got a championship ring too. That brings us to the conclusion of our program. Thank you once again to everybody for tuning in. Thanks to Aaron Bruski and of course Dawson, who we sort of put you aside for a little bit for the programming here. Fantasy NBA Today. The week concludes. Thank you as always to everybody who's been going and rating the show. Bruski wants us to get to 50, and then he'll start to reveal some information on the upcoming discounts. Keep listening, keep liking, keep retweeting, keep following. He's at Aaron Bruski. I am at Dan Besbris. The Bruski will be back for premium subscribers on Sunday night. That's the Waiver Wired show, and then we'll be back with you on Fantasy NBA Today. Kicks off once again a new week on Monday. Good luck to everyone. Have a wonderful weekend. We'll talk to you next week. So long.